Hello there and welcome back to the Mega Drive Hour, or as I should say, the Mini Drive Hour, because that's what this is. We're going to be checking out the Mega Drive Mini, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to very quickly play every game for a couple of minutes, so that I have an idea of what this collection has to offer, and hopefully you can get an idea too of what this collection has to offer. So this is the Sega Mega Drive Mini. This thing came out in Europe at least a couple of days ago, and if you live in other parts of the world, then this thing has been out for a couple of weeks already. Well, actually in Europe it was last week too, I think, wasn't it? Yeah, it was a week ago. Man, I'm stupid. But yeah, this is another one of those miniature consoles, and I'm really curious if this one is any good. I honestly don't know. I bought one. I also bought the Super Nintendo Classic Mini, and the Super Nintendo Classic Mini is pretty good. I haven't really used it to play any games, you know, because I also have a real Super Nintendo. Same thing with the Sega Mega Drive Mini. Yeah, let's check out some games. Let's start out with Alex Kidd in Enchanted Castle. I'm just gonna play every game for a couple of minutes, and that will be it. I'm not gonna be playing any game for a significant amount of time. So, of course, it's got to be an Alex Kidd game. The forgotten Sega mascot, Alex Kidd. I used to own a Sega Master System 2, and the Sega Master System 2 had a game that was built into the system, and it was Alex Kidd in Miracle World, I think. And what I remember from that game is that game actually taught me how to play rock, paper, scissors when I was like, you know, like 3 or 4 years old. So, yeah, fun times. So one of the things that I'm noticing is that, first of all, the music in this collection, it's kind of like a remix of different Mega Drive game themes. Like, this right here sounds like Comic Zone. And there's a part that kind of sounds like Echo the Dolphin, and then there's a part that kind of sounds like Sonic, but it's not exactly the same, you know? But this sounds very similar to like Comic Zone, for example. And also, you know, if you pick a game, you can see a little description of the game. Alex Kidd, master of rock, paper, scissors, and kung fu, etc. You can see a little box art. I'm glad that they went with the European box art for the European release, as they should. And you get that those Japanese icons that Sega used to use on Japanese versions of games on the box art, where it tells you what kind of game it is. So it's a one-player game and it's an action game. And the thing is, they never really used those icons on European versions of games. Like, most games don't even say how many players there are or anything like that. They did do that in Japan, and I believe in America too. And it's the same thing with like the Sega Seal of Approval, or whatever that thing is called. They never really used that in Europe back in the day, but they use it in America, so you know. Anyway, let's check out this game. So it makes the Streets of Rage sound. Yep, it's Alex Kidd, alright. Now, I don't think I've ever played this game before. I'm only familiar with the Master System version. And I'm going to be playing these games with the controllers that were included in the collection. So that means the classic 3-button controller instead of the 6-button controller. And, you know, it's nice to have new 3-button controllers, because the ones that I have they look horrible, and you know, they went through some abuse over the years, and they're not exactly in the best shape, but they still work. But you know, I've always liked the 3-button Sega Mega Drive controller. 6-button is cool too, but I've always been a fan of the 3-button. You know, that's just me. Honestly, the controller, I haven't really played too many games on the Sega Mega Drive Mini. And I only checked it out for a little bit, but the controller, it feels alright, you know? Of course, I can't say anything about the build quality as of right now, because this thing was just released, but it feels good, you know? The buttons make the right sound that I expect. Alright, can we please... Oh wait, I got the second controller. I was like, why don't any of the buttons work? But that's the controller that was plugged into the second controller port, so... Rookie Town. So yeah, Alex Kidd. Oh, this does look familiar. Yep, that also looks familiar. Wait, is this just the Master System game? Because this looks very similar to the Master System game that I remember. Beat me at the game and I'll give you a gift. 50 cents? $50? Will you bet your life? Sure, why not? Pick paper, rock, or scissors before the music stops. Ready? Oh yeah, I remember this. It's called a tie. Ooh. Fuck you. So yeah, this, no joke, this game actually taught me how to play rock, paper, scissors. Like, I was that young when I played the Master System version of Alex Kidd, but it might have actually been this one instead of Miracle World. I always thought it was Miracle World, but... Yeah, sure, why not? Damn. Holy shit, I'm getting my ass kicked at rock, paper, scissors. Is this even winnable? But yeah, this does look quite similar to that Master System game that I played. So maybe it was the Master System version of this game. Fuck. Anyway, let's just continue on. So far, as I said, I'm not familiar with the Mega Drive version of this game, but the game, it looks like what I would expect the game to look like on the Mega Drive, so that's good. Oh yeah, what was the purpose of the necklace again? I don't even remember. Yeah, fuck you, asshole. Here, take it, you thief. But I just want it fair and square, like... Actually, give me a second here. I gotta check if I got the settings right for the stream. Yeah, I do. I'm pretty sure I do. So. But this might just be like the Mega Drive version of the Master System game. I'm not 100% sure. But this does all feel very familiar. Or maybe the Alex Kidd games just kind of all follow the same formula. I don't know. That would be a good question. Let's just run past everything, grab the rice ball, whatever that thing is. In the Master System game, they actually changed it to a hamburger, I think. He eats hamburgers. Oh yeah, the motorcycle. I remember this thing. I really gotta get this thing. Oh shit. Let's try again. There we go. Now, I'm not exactly sure what the necklace does. I don't really remember, but they'll do something. All right. Let's do it. Let's go. I remember this thing in the Master System version. This fucking motorcycle was like completely uncontrollable. From what I remember, like it went so fucking fast that you could hardly even. Alright, so that's Alex Kidd. As I said, I'm not gonna play the games for very long. So if you hit the reset button, which in the Mega Drive Mini, if you hit the reset button, it actually makes a click sound, whereas on a real Mega Drive, it's like the button is more. How do you say that? It's more like squishy almost. Like it doesn't, when you press it down, it doesn't make a click sound. It's like the Super Nintendo reset button where you press it down and it's like soft. But on the Mega Drive Mini, if you hit the reset button, it actually makes a click sound, and it doesn't actually restart the console. It just puts you into this menu right here. So I'm not gonna save. Of course, Altered Beast has to be on here. One of the original Sega Genesis launch titles, I think. I gotta be honest with you, I never really cared much for this game. That's just the truth, you know. But I understand that it's a classic, you know, it's from 1988, so. Wise from your grave. But yeah. Like I never really got into this game, to be honest with you. I know it's a classic, but I can't say I really care too much for it. Just kicking zombies in the shins. You know? And looking at this game, I gotta be honest with you, it was definitely the right choice to start including Sonic the Hedgehog as the pack-in game instead of this one. Because, man, this game is kind of rough. I believe it's a port of, I believe this is a port of an arcade game. Because, you know, Sega was always the, they were the kings of the arcade games. And, yeah, I mean, I'm fucking dead. See, I don't even know how to play this game, but, how do you transform? How do you do that again? Like, I understand people have nostalgia for this game, and that's why it has to be included in this collection, but honestly, I don't know. I never really saw the appeal of Altered Beast. Like, I mean, just look at this game. Like, I'm sure there's people out there that really like this game, but I don't know. It's not. I never owned this game when I was a kid, so I don't have any nostalgia for it. Like, I mean, I owned Pit Fighter when I was a kid, and I owned Super Thunderblade when I was a kid, and those games are also not very good, but I do have nostalgia for those games. You know what I mean? So I can see where people are coming from when they say they like Altered Beast, but yeah, it's not really my kind of game. So let's go back to the main menu. Then there's Space Harrier 2, which was also a launch title. I've never really played the Space Harrier games, but this is one of those like 3D kind of games, right? Like Outrun, right? There was Space Harrier, there was Outrun, and then there was, what was it, Hang On? Yep, there it is. But yeah, we have all the games ordered by release date, so we're starting out with these kind of games. Which, honestly, the 3D effect is pretty good in this game, I think. You know? But this, I think, was when they developed kind of the special, like, 3D sort of thing. The 3D hardware. that they used in Space Harrier and Outrun and Hang On, I think. For the arcades, of course, but I don't think the Mega Drive has that same kind of hardware. So,
Get ready.
wait a minute, is that Get Ready sounds exactly the same as the one from Turbo Outrun, doesn't it? Like, that's the same voice sample, I think.
Get ready. Get ready.
So we just saw Thunder Force 3, which is a pretty good game. There's also Thunder Force 4, which isn't in this collection, but that's probably an even better game, I think. And then we have, what's this one? Ghouls and Ghosts or Ghosts and Goblins? I always confuse the two. One of the two. Which, you know, this game probably has the greatest box art of all time. And, yeah, then there was Space Harrier that I just played, and Space Harrier is, you know, it's a classic, but, I'm sure a lot of people thought it was really impressive to see that kind of, like, fake 3D thing. Oh, shit. Well, I'm dead. I gotta be honest with you. I can't say I really care all that much about the games that I've played so far. I mean, Thunder Force 3 is fucking awesome, of course, but I mean, like, Alex Kidd, yeah, I remember that because I played it on a Master System. And, it's alright, but not amazing. Altered Beast, I don't really care too much about it. Space Harrier, again, is an alright game for an early Mega Drive title, but, you know, I can't say I really ever played Space Harrier. Thunder Force 3 is pretty awesome in my opinion. Now, Ghouls and Ghosts has the greatest box art of all time. I mean, just look at it. It's fucking majestic. But then again, you know, we have selected these games based on their release dates. You know, so if we scroll down, we're going to see the newer games. Which is where things, I think, will really get interesting. But yeah, I mean, I think it's perfectly understandable that these games are on here because these are real classics. But I think the more interesting games are going to come later. You know what I mean? At least that's my opinion, you know. I'm sure a lot of people really love all of these games. But I can't say I really, like, care all that much for most of them so far. They're not bad games or anything, it's just that, you know, they were the early days of the Sega Mega Drive. And, like, is there really anyone that cares about Altered Beast? I mean, come on. It's Altered Beast. Like, seriously. So yeah, then there's Golden Axe. I'm gonna pick the Dwarf. Which is another, like, true classic, right? Golden Axe. Death Adder invaded the castle and has taken the king and princess prisoners. My good friend Alex was also killed in the battle. To defeat them and to bring peace to the land is my duty. So yeah. Golden Axe, I gotta be honest with you, so far the games look and play how I would expect them to play. you know, it's more or less quite similar to like the way that the emulation is in Sega Mega Drive Classics. You know, the Sega Mega Drive Classics collection, which I own the PlayStation 4 version and the PC version of Sega Mega Drive Classics. And you know, you get that little like, you get that cute little virtual room with the posters, which is really cool. I like that. And you know, the emulation in that is good enough, you know, like it's the thing about these I'm sorry. The thing about these emulators is that they don't really always get the sound emulation quite right, you know? In fact, they almost never do. Which is kind of a shame, you know, like, because one thing that I love about the Sega Mega Drive is the music coming from the system. But one of the things that they never do in these emulators is actually like filter the sound in the way that a real Mega Drive does it. So you always get that kind of like harsh noise almost. But yeah, I mean, all of these games play about how I would expect them to play on an emulator. And it's pretty good, you know? Like this is so much better than those like at-games Sega Mega Drives. I don't even want to talk about those. But yeah, I mean, Golden Axe is another one of those games that I never really played. I didn't own it back in the day, so I am kind of familiar with what it is though, but see, I mean, it looks pretty good. And so the Mega Drive Mini, well, it looks exactly like my Sega Mega Drive. It has everything. It's got the volume slider, which doesn't do anything, I don't think. No, the volume slider doesn't do anything. It's got the reset button, it's got the on-off switch, and it all looks the same as a real Sega Mega Drive, except it's about the size almost of a Mega Drive cartridge. It's a little bit bigger than that, but it's basically that kind of size, and it weighs almost the same as a Mega Drive cartridge too. The Mega Drive Mini it weighs very little, which kind of surprised me. But then again, the Super Nintendo Classic Mini also weighs nothing, so I probably shouldn't really be surprised about that. But it's like you can pick it up in one hand, and it weighs almost nothing. And it plays a collection of 42 games, and 40 of those are classic Mega Drive games, and then there's 2 new ones. They're not actually new games, but they were like previously unreleased games, or basically new ports for the Mega Drive of old games, I think. That's what they are. So it's kind of almost like a Star Fox 2 situation, or something like that. So yeah, I've seen enough of this game, to be honest with you. I mean, it's Golden Axe, you know what it is, right? So then we have the classic puzzle game, Columns. Is there anything else that I can show you? What if I... Oh yeah, there's of course the settings menu. So this is just a warning. Then there's the languages. You got Japanese, English, French, Italian, German, Spanish, traditional Chinese, and Korean. Then there's the screen settings. Now, something you can do is you can actually play the games in widescreen, which, I mean, you can tell right here it's gonna stretch out the game and make it look horrible, probably. So I'm not gonna do that. Then there's the wallpaper settings. Now, it selects this wallpaper as the standard wallpaper, but you can just turn it off if you want. But you know, if you want to see it, we can do that. So let's play Columns with that wallpaper. See, and there's the wallpaper. It doesn't really add anything in my opinion. I prefer to play it with the wallpaper off. So yeah, it's Columns. Hell yeah. And Columns is sort of like a Tetris, sort of like a Puyo Puyo type game, you know. Dropping blocks. See, and then oh, bam. Pretty simple. But it's another classic game. Just connect the 3 colors. This is what in modern times would basically be, you know, like a Candy Crush or something. Look at that. But Tetris is also in this collection, which is probably one of the more interesting games in this collection, I think. Because Tetris was never officially released for the Mega Drive. And that's what makes it interesting, but there wasn't a Sega arcade version of Tetris. And, there's a lot to say about that game, you know? But yeah, this is, the, you know, just another dropping block kind of game. And you drop the blocks and then the game starts going faster until you die. It's, honestly, I like Columns. I think it's a pretty fun game. I like Puyo Puyo too. I like Tetris. I like all of them. But yeah, Tetris is also in this collection, and Tetris is definitely one of the more interesting games, I would say, because there was an arcade version of Tetris, and then there was a Mega Drive port of Tetris. Oh man, I messed that up. That was kind of stupid. And I messed that up too. That was extremely dumb. What am I doing? But it doesn't matter. But there was an arcade version of Tetris which Sega apparently ported to the Sega Mega Drive. But this was right around the same time when Atari ported Tetris to the Nintendo Entertainment System, and they got sued by Nintendo. And Sega was about to release their Mega Drive version of Tetris for in Japan. And then there was a company called Bulletproof Software who held the rights to the home console versions of Tetris in Japan. And they basically said, hey, you can't release this game, you know? We saw what Nintendo did in America with Atari, trying to release Tetris under their Tengen brand, and so you're not going to release this Mega Drive version of Tetris. And then, ever since then, Sega has basically pretended that they never made a Mega Drive version of Tetris, even though they did. It's in this collection, and apparently it's a new version of Tetris. But it is based on that arcade game. So, kind of interesting, you know? So, this is Columns, you know? I mean, you can tell what this is, right? I don't have to explain it to you. It's pretty self-explanatory. So, then there's this wallpaper, which, you know, it's just another wallpaper. I prefer it with the wallpaper off, personally. Alright, now this is interesting. They got a Mickey Mouse game on here. So, I guess they got Disney on board with the Mega Drive Mini, which is cool. Now, Castle Evolution. I do remember playing a Mickey Mouse game on the Master System, but I don't think I ever played a Mega Drive Mickey Mouse game. I know, well, actually that's a lie. I have played the Circus game, the Capcom Circus game, which was released for the Sega Genesis in America. It was not released in Europe, I don't think, but I did play that like on an emulator like years ago. That game's pretty good, you know. The Circus Mystery or something, Mickey Mouse Circus. I don't remember exactly what the title of that game is, but Castle of Illusion is of course a real Sega classic as well. And I'm glad that this game is on here, you know? I mean, you know how things are with, like, rights issues and stuff like that, right? You know how difficult Disney can be. And as well as other companies where it's like, oh, you want to release this, you want to re-release this classic game? No, you can't. Because we don't give you permission. Alright, how do you play this game again? I don't remember. Do I have an attack or no? Guess not, huh? Oh yeah, it's this game. With the apples and the mushrooms. You know, this is not the greatest Sega Mega Drive game ever made, but I mean, it's Castle of Illusion, right? Everybody knows this game, right? So, you gotta include a game like this. But, if I'm perfectly honest with you, I would have preferred the Capcom Circus Mystery game, because I think that's a better Mickey Mouse game. But then again, that game was also released for the Super Nintendo, I believe. But also the Sega Genesis, but it wasn't released in Europe, I don't think. But then of course they would have also had to have Capcom on board. And as we're about to see in some of the other games that are in this collection, Capcom was on board. Because I'm pretty sure there's a Street Fighter game on here. Yeah, there's the Big Apple. And there we go, you know. Honestly, this game is pretty good, you know. So yeah, let's pause it. Go back to the main menu. As I said, I'm not going to play any game for very long. I'm not going to beat any of these games. I just want to check them out really quickly. And, you know, kind of get to know the Mega Drive Mini for a little bit. So then there's Strider. With that goofy ass box art with the guy with the purple suit on. Which, this game has a completely different box art in Japan, I think, which is much better. But, you know, of course, the Western box arts for some of these games were a little odd sometimes. I mean, if you look at the game, it's more like it has more like an anime sort of art style. But then you look at the box art and it's like fucking Captain Kirk with purple spandex. I love that about some of these older games where it's like super westernized, Americanized kind of box art. And the game is nothing like that. Oh shit. That was bad. Again, this is not a game that I've played very often, so I'm not super familiar with Strider. But again, this is a game that was based on an arcade game. Oh shit. Then there's fucking Guile from Street Fighter. Holy shit, what is that attack, dude? Now jump. Come on, jump. Game. Well, that was fast. As I said, I'm not super familiar with Strider. Alright, now here we go. Now we're getting into the real classics, in my opinion. Sonic the Hedgehog. I mean, this is the true classic Sega Mega Drive game, right? How could you not have Sonic the Hedgehog on here? My Sega Mega Drive, the one that I have, came with Sonic the Hedgehog in the box and 2 controllers, which I think that's the version of the Mega Drive and the Genesis that most people remember, because, you know, not that many people owned the Altered Beast version of the Genesis, for example, I don't think. But yeah. I mean, it's Sonic the Hedgehog, and one of the interesting things... Oh, one thing that I should change is that fucking wallpaper. I don't want that. Let's just change that, and, you know, let's just... Because why not? Change it to widescreen. I'll change it back soon enough, you know? I mean, just look at this. This game should not be in widescreen, alright? Anybody who does this is an asshole, because Mega Drive games are not played like this, you know? I mean, this is more stretched than the fucking PAL version of the game with that is also playing in the wrong aspect ratio. But this is even more stretched than that version. Oh man, I can't even look at this. At least they don't. At least they don't have that that shitty like smoothing effect that they always use in emulators. In this collection, I like my pixels nice and sharp, if you know what I mean. One thing that I don't like about these types of emulators is that they always this one doesn't, but sometimes they include these like shitty like bilinear filtering modes or whatever the fuck those are called. You know, like I mean, the Sonic CD remake, for example, when you start that game up, it boots into like the filtered mode. You know, and it's like, what are we doing? Don't do that. I don't want this like blurry shit. I just want the game the way that it looks, you know? I want the game to look like what I'm seeing when I hook up my Mega Drive with RGB SCART. That's what I want. I don't, you know... I know you're going for like a composite kind of look, but in these kind of emulators, it never really works, in my opinion. You know, Sonic CD remake is of course not emulated, but you know what I'm trying to say, right? So here's Sonic. Sonic 1 is probably in like the top 2 or top 3 of my favorite games of all time. You know? I just want to say that I'm really glad that they included the NTSC version of Sonic 1 and not the PAL version of Sonic 1, because I mean, in case you don't know, the PAL version of Sonic 1, the original European release of this game was, you know, it ran at 50 hertz, and you could really tell that the game was slowed down, the music was slower and everything like that. And I'm just really glad that Sega opted to just, you know, include the 60 hertz version of most of the games. I mean, there are a couple of PAL games in here, and I'm really curious if they run at 60 hertz or at 50 hertz, but because like Probotector is in this collection, for example, which is the PAL version of Contra. Whoa, 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 whoa. Look at that. Come on, I gotta be able to do this, right? But yeah, with Sonic 1, like, I am familiar with the PAL version of the game, and well, I wouldn't say completely different, but it's quite different from the NTSC release. Because, you know, it runs at 50 hertz, so it's like 17% slower than the NTSC version, and it's still perfectly playable, but I mean, they could have put the PAL version of the game on there just because, like, oh yeah, that's the one that people remember, right? But no, they opted for NTSC versions of the games running at 60 hertz, which honestly I think is the right choice to make, you know. But this is not how Sonic was originally released for the European Mega Drive, because it was slower, quite a bit slower than this. But you know, there are some like actual PAL versions of games in this collection, because I know for a fact that like Probotector is on here, and that was only released as Probotector in Europe, and not, you know, not as, you know, it was released as Contra everywhere else, I think. Contra Hardcore. But it was Probotector in Europe, and so I honestly don't really know how that game is gonna run in this collection. If it's gonna run at 50 hertz or if it's gonna run at 60 hertz. And like Castlevania, the new generation is on here as well, which means that it's not Bloodlines, you know. So how is that game gonna run? Is it gonna run at 50 hertz? I don't know. Man, I gotta be honest with you, I am so not used to playing the NTSC version of Sonic 1 that I'm... You know, like, I am so used to the PAL version that playing the NTSC version is just kind of weird to me, almost. You know, even though this is the right version of Sonic to play. Well, I fucked up. Time to get out of here. But yeah, I mean... Like, I grew up with the PAL Sega Mega Drive, right? So I'm used to PAL versions of games, so to be playing the NTSC versions, which are definitely better in every way than PAL versions of games, it's I don't know, I just gotta get used to it, you know. It's not like Sonic is a game that I remember so well from my childhood, and then, you know, there's the NTSC version, and it's different. But this is the right version of Sonic, you know, and not the PAL version. So it's, I don't know. I've always had a bit of a hard time adjusting to that. So, of course, Toe Jam and Roll, you know, of course you gotta have Sonic and Toe Jam and Roll, right? Sonic 2 is also on here. But interestingly, Sonic 3 is not on here. And, you know, Sonic 3 is one of those games that never is included in these types of collections. Because of, like, music rights issues, I think. You know? That's always my guess. It's that, you know, they had Michael Jackson work on that game, and then they didn't credit him, but, like, some of the songs are clearly made by him, so it's like... There's some issue there, and, sadly, Sonic 3 is not on here. But I'm curious if Sonic and Knuckles is. Is it? I'm not seeing Sonic and Knuckles, so I'm guessing Sonic and Knuckles also isn't on here. I guess it's not, huh? Because I'm not seeing that Sonic and Knuckles box art. Anyway, let's go to Toe Jam and Earl. So, Toe Jam and Earl recently got a brand new game. Produced by the one and only Macaulay Culkin for some reason. I don't know why. But Macaulay, if you are watching this, which I'm assuming you're not, I love you. Just want you to know that. But yeah, it's motherfucking Toe Jam and Earl, right? You can't go wrong with this game. And once again, this is a game that was slower in the PAL version. No, I want to play one player. So yeah, it's Toe Jam and Earl, and Toe Jam and Earl recently got a brand new game called Toe Jam and Earl Back in the Groove. And honestly, that game's pretty fun. I've played it. And Toe Jam and Earl is a really fun co-op game, but you know, I think it's more fun to play it in co-op than to play it by yourself, but you know, playing it on your own is not bad either. Still fun. It's got that funky soundtrack. That slap bass. Hint, ship piece here. So yeah, you gotta collect the ship pieces and then build the ship. There we go. And there's all kinds of like weird people and monsters and stuff like that. Need bucks. So yeah, Toe Jam is a wiener. And Earl, he's on vacation. I've always liked the style of the Toe Jam and Earl games, you know? They had a kind of a sense of humor that you don't really find in a lot of other games. But yeah, it's you collect ship pieces and build a ship. Then it's time to get the hell out of here. That's how Toe Jam and Earl works. There's the phone. Oh yeah, and the phone uncovers parts of the map, which is super useful. So, alright, so the C button uncovers the map, of course. So yeah, that's the rocket ship. Honestly, I probably should have picked Earl, because Earl is definitely the better character. I mean, he just is. I mean, he's fucking Earl. Big Earl. Jammin'. Let's try the... Oh, great. A fucking cloud. You know, the presents... The presents usually aren't very helpful. In most cases. Like, the presents tend to do bad things to you more often than good things. Where the hell am I going? Because the elevator is over there, right? But you know, it's Toe Jam and Earl. It's got a funky soundtrack. And it's a pretty fun game to play, you know? A buck. Want to avoid those monsters, of course. And then, yeah. This is a quite relaxing game. But, it gets more tense later on. Like, once you have a couple of ship pieces, then, you know, and the people start going after you. This game can actually get quite intense. Not bad. Watermelon. Another phone. I'm enjoying this game way too much. Oh, there's the hula girl. Let's just check out the hula girl and then do a little dance. There we go. Yeah. Anyway, let's move on. I don't want to play any. I don't want to play any of the games for too long. I don't want to. Like, I could see myself playing all the way through Sonic 1 or Toe Jam and Roll or something, or Streets of Rage, like right now, but I ain't got the time for that, so let's not do that. Ah, there's Alicia Dragoon. Now, this is a game that I played the other day, and I said I wasn't familiar with it, but now I am. So, this is a pretty cool game, actually, Alicia Dragoon. Like, I had never played it before, but, this is a pretty good game, yeah. And you know what? It actually does look pretty much the same as when I hook up my Sega Mega Drive. What was I gonna say? Oh yeah. This game, I played this the other day on the Mega Drive Hour, and the thing that I do on the Mega Drive Hour is I hook up my Sega Mega Drive with an RGB SCART cable to a device known as the open source scan converter. And the open source scan converter, it's not an upscaler, but it kind of does the same kind of thing as an upscaler, you know? You can't call it an upscaler, you're not allowed to do that because it is a line doubler. But anyway, what it does is similar to an upscaler, where it takes the image and then it increases the resolution and then it outputs it through HDMI. So it's, you know, it's similar to a FrameMeister, but I think the way that it does it, the technology that it uses to do what it does is different, so that's why you can't call it an upscaler, I think. But anyways, that's what I do on the Mega Drive Hour, and that's also what I do when I record the Mega Drive soundtracks. And the thing is that what I'm seeing right here looks almost exactly the same as when I did the Mega Drive Hour and I played Alicia Dragoon. And the thing is, in my opinion, with these older games, ideally, you want to play them on a CRT TV. You know, you want to have an old CRT TV, and then hook it up with RGB SCART, and that's how you want to play your Sega Mega Drive games, you know? Or, what's even better, is you get yourself a professional video monitor, a PVM. I have one of those. It's actually a Sony BVM, broadcast video monitor, and it's very small. It's only like 8 or 9 inches, the screen, in diameter, and it's a very small little device, but when you hook up an old video game console to this professional video monitor with RGB SCART, it looks amazing, you know? And I use it for everything up to the PlayStation 2 and the GameCube and the Nintendo Wii, you know? So, yeah. It's Alicia Dragoon. And once again, I am suspecting that this is the NTSC version, because I get the feeling that it's a little bit faster than when I played the PAL version on my Sega Mega Drive. Yeah, it definitely is a little bit faster, but I mean the PAL version was perfectly playable. It's just that with a lot of the PAL versions of games, they were always a bit slower than NTSC versions. But yeah, this one is definitely faster. And yeah, the only kind of difference that I'm noticing from a real Mega Drive is that, you know, the sound of the Mega Drive Mini, it has that like kind of obvious sort of emulated quality to it. You know what I mean? Like, you know, it's like when you look up a Sega Mega Drive soundtrack on YouTube and like the first 10 results are just like emulated recordings you know, or some guy playing back a VGM pack. Like, it's always very, very obvious when people do that with Sega Mega Drive soundtracks. And sadly, those kind of videos always have the most views for some fucking reason. And the thing is that with the Mega Drive, it just sounds so much better coming from real hardware. And once again, you can tell that this is very obviously emulated when it comes to the soundtrack. But you know what? It's fine. You know, I didn't expect like the sort of filtering that a real Mega Drive does from the Mega Drive Mini. But the games they play pretty well. They look good too, and the sound it's good enough, you know, for an emulator. It's what you would expect. And I think this is a perfectly acceptable way to play Mega Drive games so far. You know, I haven't seen a game that plays in you know, that doesn't work well on this device so far. So far the games all emulate quite decently. But I would say that, in my honest opinion, nothing beats playing a Mega Drive game on a real Mega Drive. You know, that's just how I feel about it. But hey, the Mega Drive Mini, it's another good way to play them. You know, there's nothing wrong with playing games on this device. The emulation, it's pretty good. You know, they got M2. In case you don't know what M2 is, M2 is the developer who also did the Streets of Rage. Not just Streets of Rage, they did all of the 3DS Sega Mega Drive games. You know, the 3D Sega games, they did all of those. And those are honestly pretty good versions of the Sega Mega Drive games. You could play them in 3D. And the one that I happen to own on the 3DS is Streets of Rage. 3D Streets of Rage, I believe, is what it's called. And I think the 3D actually works really well in that game. So yeah. And So they figured out how to turn Sega Mega Drive games into 3D and put them on 3DS, and they play quite well, or at least Streets of Rage does. And actually, I think it's Streets of Rage 2. That's the one that I own, not 1. And Sega hired them to also do the emulation for this collection, the Mega Drive Mini. So I think that's a pretty good decision because, I mean, as you can see, the games play quite nicely on the Mega Drive Mini. So let's move on. I already played Elysia Dragoon not too long ago, so oh fuck, I keep hitting the wrong button. There it is. But yeah, M2 was responsible for the 3DS Mega Drive conversions. And they're also responsible for the Mega Drive Mini emulation side of things. And so far, I think they did a pretty good job. So here's Wonder Boy in Monster World. Well, what's with this aspect ratio? Alright, this is not a game that I'm super familiar with, to be honest with you. I've never really played this game, so... probably not going to be playing this for very long. So yeah, I just noticed it's already been an hour, so I thought I was going to be able to check out every single game right now. But unfortunately, I don't think I am, because I don't think I have the time for that. So, here's the thing. This is another game that I really care too much about, so let's check out like 1 or 2 more games. And that'll be it. I really thought I could check out every game for just a couple of minutes. But unfortunately, I can't. So, so here's the thing. There were a couple of things that I wanted to say. What's interesting is that they actually got Electronic Arts on board. Because Road Rash is on here. Which I think that's quite surprising to see an EA game in a Mega Drive collection. I think that's honestly pretty awesome. I mean, they got Road Rash 2? Like, seriously? Like, that's pretty cool, you know? I mean, here it is. It's Road Rash 2, you know? And, yeah, I mean, like, I for some reason, I didn't expect them to be able to get EA on board. But they did. And, in all honesty, you know, EA was a big part of the Sega Mega Drive, you know? They released so many games for the Sega Mega Drive. And, so, you know, there has to be an EA game in this collection, right? If you've got the Mega Drive Mini, then there has to be an EA game, you know? Because there were so many EA games that were released for the Mega Drive. The EA is partly responsible for making the Mega Drive as big as it was, I think. And, yeah, they got Road Rash 2, which is honestly a pretty good game. And, of course, you know, Echo the Dolphin is on here, as you would expect. Sonic 2. Oh, there's another Mickey Mouse game. Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck in World Evolution. Honestly, pretty cool that they got that. Now, Streets of Rage 2 is on here as well. And, isn't Streets of Rage 1 also on here? Or is it just 2? Actually, it might just be 2. Well, they got the best one, I think. Because 2 is probably the best one. Interestingly enough, not Streets of... I'm not seeing Streets of Rage 1 here, so that's... interesting. I would have expected Streets of Rage 1 on here, but it's just 2. They also got Gunstar Heroes, which is, again, that's fucking awesome that they got that game. You know, of course, it has to be a Shinobi game as well. And, here's where we get, a Capcom game. Street Fighter 2, the Special Champion Edition. Now, here's the thing. The Mega Drive Mini does not come with a 6-button controller. It's just a 3-button controller. And for a game like this, you definitely want a 6-button controller, so... what you can do is you can buy the Retrobit 6-button Mega Drive USB controller and use it with this thing. Or you can just play the game with the 3-button controller, but... For fighting games on the Mega Drive, I mean, you really do want that 6-button controller. So... you know, this is the one occasion where I would say, like, yeah, it probably would have been better to have the 6-button controller instead of the 3-button one. Now, of course, there's Sonic Spinball, which, I mean... Sonic Spinball always shows up in these collections, and I love Sonic Spinball, but it's just not a very good game, you know? It's just... Yo, what's up with the music? What's going on? Was the music that fast in the American version? Or is this just like the PAL version, but it's like sped up or something? What the hell is going on? This honestly feels like it's the PAL version of the game, but it's running at 60 Hz. Like, listen to that music. This is odd. Now, here's the thing. The music in Sonic Spinball, in the American version, it wasn't this fast, was it? Like, it was the same sort of speed as in the PAL version? But this honestly feels like it's the PAL version, but they've sped it up to, like, 60 Hz or something. This is weird. Let's reset the game. I really feel like there's something wrong here. Or is this just the NTSC version? This does not sound right. There's no way that the music was this fast in the NTSC version, right? Like, what I really think happened here is that they included the PAL version, but then they had it, like, run at 60 Hz instead of 50, and so that's why the music is sped up. This is really kind of bizarre, honestly. That's what I think would happen, is that this is the European version, but they're having it run too fast, basically. And so that's why the music is all messed up. But this, honestly, they should have just included the NTSC version. I don't know what this is, honestly. But this is weird. But what I was going to say was that Sonic Spinball is one of those games that always shows up in these collections. Same thing with Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine. And, you know, hey, Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine is a great game. And Sonic Spinball, I like it, but it's kind of whatever, you know? But honestly, I really feel like instead of either Sonic Spinball or Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine, we could have gotten another great game, you know? Like, Sonic Spinball is always one of those games that always shows up in these collections, and it's just not that great of a game, you know? I like it, but it's not that great. And I would have preferred, like, a different game instead of Sonic Spinball, to be honest with you. And there's definitely something wrong here, because I'm pretty sure that is not how Sonic Spinball is supposed to run. It really feels like they have the European version on here, but they're running it too fast. So that's why you get that weird music, because I think it's one of those games where they adjusted the speed of the music in the European version to be the same as in, you know, the American version. So, not sure what's going on here, but it's weird. You know, Eternal Champions is another one of those games that I don't really care about, to be honest with you. I just think, you know, like, I'm sure some other people do, but, you know, there's more games on here where I'm like, I don't really care about this. Overall, I would say this collection could have been better, but at the same time, they still did a pretty good job. That's sort of how I feel about this collection, and, honestly, what's missing here, in my opinion, is a Mega CD game, a 32X game, and possibly also a Master System game, because those are all games that you can play on the Mega Drive if you have either the Sega Mega CD, the Sega 32X, or the Master System converter, you know? And right now, we're only getting just straight up Mega Drive games, which is fine, I know. But wouldn't it have been cool to have, like, Sonic CD on it or something? Or Road Avenger? I don't know. Also, another game that is really missing, that really should have been on here, is, besides Sonic 3, Michael Jackson's Moonwalker. Because, I mean, honestly, Michael Jackson's Moonwalker is such a classic. Michael Jackson was such a big part of, you know, of Sega's marketing and everything like that. I really think Moonwalker should have been on here, but once again, it's probably a rights issue, just like with Sonic 3, so it's not on here. And, you know, I mean, Earthworm Jim is on here, so that's pretty cool. And here's Probotector. Now, Probotector, I mean... this is clearly the PAL version of the game, right? But... I'm guessing this is probably also running at 60 Hz instead of 50? Yeah, I mean, just listening to that Konami logo, I'm guessing that this is the PAL version of the game, but they're running it at 60 Hz instead of 50. That's probably what's going on here. Because this does not feel like a 50 Hz game at all. So yeah, this is basically just a reskinned Contra. But this feels like it's running at 60 Hz instead of 50. So, is it also going to be too fast, like Sonic Spinball, or not? Now, this is probably what Contra is like, right? It's probably, yeah. This doesn't feel too fast or anything, I don't think. So what I'm guessing is that this is also like the PAL version of the game, but they're running it at 60 Hz. And I guess Probotector must have been a game that was always slower in the European version. Like, they didn't optimize it. So I'm guessing that's what's going on here. And it's probably the same thing with Castlevania, the new generation. Like, my guess is that when they made the PAL version of the game, they just, like, changed a bunch of stuff, but they didn't optimize the game. They didn't speed it up a little bit so it would play faster on a PAL console. So what we're getting here is we're getting PAL versions of games running at 60 Hz, which, hey, honestly, that's pretty cool. Like, once again, this like, right from the start, this feels like a 60 Hz game and not a 50 Hz game. And the thing about Sonic Spinball is that Sonic Spinball is doesn't matter if you're playing the European version or the American version or the Japanese version. That game is laggy in any region. You know what I mean? But the thing about Sonic Spinball is that I believe the speed of the music was adjusted so that it would be the same in the European version as it is in the American and Japanese versions. So what's going on with Sonic Spinball, I think, is that we're getting the PAL 50 Hz version, but they're making it run at 60 Hz. And so that's why you get that, like, weird sped up music. Because I'm pretty sure that in the American version of Sonic Spinball, the music is not that fast, right? So I guess that's what's going on. I mean, if we look at this game, it very clearly says Castlevania: The New Generation, which is the title of the European version of the game, instead of Bloodlines. And it really is a shame that they censored the game for the European release. I do think that really sucks, but I'm guessing that these Konami games, that they were just like, they changed the title and stuff like that, but they didn't like optimize the games for the PAL version. So yeah, we're basically getting the new generation, but it's running at the speed of Bloodlines. I guess that's what's kind of going on. And I don't know what's going on, but I feel like they did the same thing for Sonic Spinball. Like, let's look at this again. This is so weird. Like, this is way too fast, right? This is not how it's supposed to be. Yeah, yeah, I think that's what it is. It's the PAL version of the game, but it's running at 60 Hz. That's what's going on here. This is weird. In the case of Sonic Spinball, they really should have just included the NTSC version. So I don't know why they didn't just do that. Because this is just wrong. Alright, so yeah, Dynamite Heady is on here as well, and you know, here's Street Fighter 2, the Special Champions Edition. And this, you know, along with like Comic Zone and probably Eternal Champions as well, are the games that you want to play with the 6-button controller instead of a 3-button. But yeah, they didn't include a 6-button controller with the Mega Drive Mini, at least not over here in Europe. Or in America, or in Australia. It was only in Japan, I think. So yeah, we got a Street Fighter game. That's pretty neat. I haven't played Street Fighter in so long. I used to own one of the Street Fighter games for the Super Nintendo, and I was always fucking terrible at it. And yeah, this is definitely a game where you need a 6-button controller. But yeah, I mean, you can play it with a 3-button controller. It works. So yeah, sadly, I'm not going to be able to play every single game because then the stream would go on for too long, I think. So I might have to come back to some of these games later. But you know, I mean, Mega Man the Wily Wars is on here, which again is a Capcom game, and it's pretty damn cool that they got this on here. They got Castlevania, that's a Konami game. They got Probotector, which again is a Konami game. They also have Vector Man, of course, you gotta have Vector Man. Let's see, I'm pretty sure Monster World 4 was never released in Europe for the Mega Drive, but here it is. Pretty sure that's like a Japanese exclusive or something. Let's see, what are some other interesting games on here? I mean, there's plenty of cool stuff on here. But yeah, I mean, they got Disney on board, they got Konami on board, they got EA on board. And they have Capcom on board, which I think that's pretty neat that they have all of those on board. And they also have Taito on board. Because we're getting a brand new port of Darius. Now, I looked this up. Apparently, Darius was supposed to be released for the Mega Drive, but it never was. And instead, they only released Darius 2. So, they have retroactively included Darius 1 on here as a new Mega Drive game. And yeah, I think it's a port of the original arcade game. And I'm guessing they just like made a brand new port. Or maybe this is the old port that they never released, I don't know. But I think it's pretty cool that they included something like Darius on here, which was never on the Mega Drive. And now it kind of is, sort of, because it's on the Mega Drive Mini. So that's pretty cool. And then there's also, let's see, where is it? Tetris. So yeah, the story of Tetris is that Sega made an arcade version of Tetris, but they didn't have the rights to make a Mega Drive version of Tetris. And they only released the arcade version of Tetris in Japan, but apparently it was quite a popular game over there. And now they finally have released their Sega version of Tetris on the Mega Drive in the form of the Mega Drive Mini release. And what I read online was that they actually did make a Mega Drive version. Oh, I fucked myself. They actually did make a Mega Drive version of Tetris back in the day. But then there was a company called Bulletproof Software who stopped them from releasing that version. And that apparently has to do with the fact that Nintendo over in America stopped Atari from selling Tengen Tetris. Now, Tengen is a subsidiary of Atari, and they released a version of Tetris for the Nintendo Entertainment System. You know, and Atari, just like Sega, they had the rights to make an arcade version of Tetris, but not a home console version of Tetris. You know, and this has to do with the fact that, you know, back then, the Russian government, the Soviet Russian government, owned the rights to Tetris. You know, and they had this organization called ELORG, who handled the sort of licensing of the Tetris rights to other companies. You know, and so Nintendo and Sega and Atari... No, actually I think Sega sub-licensed Tetris from Atari. So that's how they got the arcade rights in Japan. But you know, Atari went through ELORG, and Nintendo went through ELORG, and so did Bulletproof Software. And so you have to understand that Atari had the arcade rights in America. Nintendo had the home console rights in America. Bulletproof Software had the home console rights in Japan. And then Sega had the arcade rights in Japan. That's, I think, how this whole thing worked out. You know? And then there was that lawsuit between Nintendo and Atari. You know, and then Bulletproof Software said, hey, we just saw what Nintendo did with Atari. So now, hey, Sega, you cannot release a Mega Drive version of Tetris. And there never was a Mega Drive version of Tetris, but supposedly 10 cartridges of Mega Drive Tetris were made before production was stopped. So yeah, but ever since then, Sega has simply pretended that they never made a version of Tetris, which is just kind of odd. But yeah, apparently they made a Mega Drive version of Tetris, and it was based on the arcade version of Tetris. And they never released it. But this version of Tetris that I'm playing right now is supposedly a new port of the arcade game for the Sega Mega Drive. So, I mean, the thing is, I find the sort of like whole like rights issues with Tetris absolutely fascinating. Like, you could make a documentary about that, and I would watch it, you know? Yeah, I just fucked myself, but it's okay. I don't think I'm gonna get out of this, but that's fine. So yeah, the thing about this version of Tetris is that you don't have that, like, hard drop. You know, you can't press up to just drop the blocks immediately, which is something that you see in a lot of modern Tetris games. And I believe some of the rules are slightly different in this version of Tetris than they are in the Tetris that most people are familiar with. And you get a picture of a iguana or whatever that thing is. So yeah, I mean, this is just kind of an odd, interesting version of Tetris, you know, just like I don't know, the CDI version of Tetris, which is also kind of strange and interesting. Oh, look at that! I already have a save file for this one. So yeah, you have save states. on the Mega Drive Mini, which is pretty cool. And, you know what? I might return later and play some of these other games that I haven't played yet. I thought I could play all of them within like an hour, but I guess that was a little bit too optimistic. But, let's end with the classic. Let's end with Sonic 2. And, that'll be it for the night. I do think it's odd how what they did with Sonic Spinball, because that is not how it's supposed to be, I don't think. But yeah, other than that, this the Mega Drive Mini, it's pretty damn cool, honestly. I mean, I just love these like miniature consoles and like, I mean, I have the Super Nintendo Classic Mini. I basically never play games on it, but I don't know, I still love it. I still think it's a cool little device. But yeah, I might return later and play some of the other games that I haven't checked out. But I know I just don't really have the time for it. I really gotta wrap it up soon. So so we'll play some Sonic 2 for just a little bit, and that will be it then. And I hope you enjoyed this little look at the Mega Drive Mini. There it is. The first stage. I didn't do any of the special stages. Maybe I should check out the special stage in Sonic 2. If I can get to it. So yeah, most of these games appear to be the NTSC versions, but then there's some versions of games that are the European PAL versions, and they run at 60 Hz, which is a little odd. But so far, this is a pretty good way to play games like Sonic 2, for example. Alright, let's do the special stage. Why not? Sadly, Sonic 3 is not on here, and I don't think Sonic and Knuckles is either. You can do glitches. Yeah, I know there's glitches. I know there's plenty of glitches in Sonic. Oh, what? Man, I am not playing too well. So that was the special stage. So there we go, that's Act 2 of Emerald Hill Zone. This is such a good game. I personally prefer the original Sonic. You know, because that's the one that I owned when I was a little kid. I didn't own this game. But yeah, I mean, I'm out of time right now, so unfortunately, I have to go because I've already been streaming for quite a while, and I might come back later, check out some of the other games in this collection. But that will be it for now, and I'll I'll see you later.